Do good, Maverick here. Welcome to podcast episode number 164. A log cabin might be a cheap housing solution. You know, when it comes to cheap housing, there are a bunch of options out there. But one of them that I think is oftentimes overlooked is basically a log cabin or a log house. Now, this one is kind of controversial because back in the day, a log cabin used to be extremely cheap. But these days, when it comes to building a log cabin or a log house, oftentimes the price is about twice as expensive as a normal house. So a lot of people will say that a log cabin or a log house, a log cabin or a log house is actually more expensive than a normal one. While that might be the case if you hire professionals to do it, but I still think that if you do it yourself, a log cabin or a log house can be one of the cheapest options that is out there. The only person I know of that have built a house completely for free is basically a Norwegian guy that got an old log house for free, which he then numbered. He numbered the logs and disassembled it, moved it moved it to the new place, and he just assembled it again or built it up again. So he basically kind of recycled an old log house. Now that's not building it from scratch, but still it is a fully usable and very cheap house. When it comes to log cabins, there used to be a thing back in the early days of the United States of America when the settlers could stake a claim. I think they had something like, was it 6 months or 12 months, something like that, to prove that they could live off of the land that they had staked out, of the land that they had staked out. They had to prove that they could live off of it. And then there was a concept called, was it the 7-day house or the 10-day house? And basically a bunch of guys got together and yeah, they built a log cabin or a small log house with the old school hand tools like axe, hand saws, knives, things like that. So yeah, about 10 days. And if they could do it that fast, about 150 years ago, it should be possible to do it pretty simply these days as well. But yeah, when it comes to doing it cheaply, getting recycled materials might be a great idea. There's a bunch of people out there that are tearing down old log buildings, like old log barns, houses, things like that. And oftentimes you can actually get the materials for free. Let me share one quick video of a guy I saw online. Let me just get this background noise off. Yeah, let me try to share an online video of a guy that now let me try to share a YouTube video of a guy that lived in a small log cabin for about 4 years. For those of you that are not watching the video version, there is a video on YouTube by the YouTube user or the YouTube channel On Beaver Creek. And the title of the video is 4 years living in a tiny log cabin.
So today I just wanted to give you a really quick tour of the small cabin that I lived in for 4 years while building our house over here. I actually lived in this cabin in 3 different locations. We moved this cabin 2 different times on the bed of a trailer. Had a crane pick it up and set it on the trailer, strapped it down, and hauled it down the road about 12 miles one way. And a couple years later, brought it back to the same general area when we bought this piece of land, and lived in it here for 2 winters, 2 years, while building the house here. So I just want to give you a quick tour of the cabin.
So yeah, this video is basically of a guy that built a tiny log cabin, and he even moved it after building it, which is kind of fascinating, especially considering that the chinking in between the logs was I don't think it was cement, but a kind of artificial material, you know. Then he gives a little tour of the inside of the cabin.
Pretty basic, but actually was quite comfortable. One thing I would recommend too, if you're wanting a really simple, quick way to put up a ceiling without.
Yeah, there you have it. That's just one example of a guy that lived in a tiny log cabin for a few years. Now, when it comes to these tiny off-grid cabins and things like that, usually it is a short-term solution. Almost all people that are building tiny houses or small cabins and things like that to live in full time. To me, it seems to be the case that almost all of them, they quit doing it after like 1 to 4 years. But the thing is, if you're doing it cheaply enough, if you're building it cheaply enough, it can actually make sense. But when some of these cabins end up costing like 50 to 200K, then it doesn't make much sense to me anymore. Now, when it comes to the price of this guy's cabin from the example video, it was actually kind of expensive. So maybe I'm contradicting myself in some way, but my point is there are some people out there that are building log cabins cheaply, and historically speaking, it was one of the cheapest houses you could build. So if you get the logs or the lumber cheaply, the thing is there's pretty few extra materials you need. If you're building a normal type of small cabin or small house, there's a lot of different materials you need. But if you build a log cabin, you mainly need logs, you know? They say money doesn't grow on tree. No, but the tree grows on trees. You know, wood grows on trees. And wood you can build houses of. And if you build a log house or a log cabin, the point is it is mainly wood that you're using. You don't need all of those different materials that quickly increases the price a lot. So if you do it that way, cheap logs, it can oftentimes be used logs as well. Because you can get logs that are like 50 to 150 years old. And in some cases, they are in excellent condition. If it has been from a building in good condition, you know. And there's actually a lot of those that are taken down, at least in some areas. But oftentimes you can also cut your own logs, you know. So yeah, just another point that I wanted to make when it comes to log cabins and log homes is that there used to be a lot of simple log cabins and log homes being built like a few decades ago, or especially about 100 years ago and older. The kind of log cabins you see in all the Western movies where they quickly built it up and they're usually or oftentimes they were chinking in between the logs with cement, and they built them in like a few days or a few weeks. When it comes to that version of log cabins and log homes, I think it can be done extremely cheaply. But the problem is that nowadays, especially here in Norway, it seems to be the case that almost all log cabins and log homes that are being built kind of like art. It's almost like art pieces with beautiful carvings outside, things like that. Yeah, that can be great, but we have gotten to the point where people think that that's the only option of log cabins there is, but it's not. That's just the normal. That's just one way of doing it. And these days it has become the normal way, but it's actually a very fancy way of doing it. And that fancy way is extremely expensive. But there is also a less fancy way of doing it. That's what I'm talking about. And when it comes to that less fancy way of doing it, it can be done without having much skills as well. But yeah, I just thought I would share that idea and throw that one out there. Maybe some of you are looking for a cheap housing option or a cheap, what should I say? A cheap, not permanent, but yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, maybe some of you are looking for a temporary solution. Maybe something you want to do for a few years. Then maybe a tiny log cabin or an off-grid log cabin could be a solution. But also, what about a log house? Especially if you think about repurposing an old log house. Here in Norway, there's actually quite a few log homes or old log houses that are given away for free. In exchange for tearing it down, you will get it for free. And some of those are actually in very good condition. So you can basically number the logs, disassemble it, move it to the place where you have bought land, and assemble it again. So you're kind of not building it, but you're, yeah, disassembling it and assembling it. That's also one option. So yeah, I guess this topic might appear kind of out of the blue on this podcast, but the thing is, when it comes to housing costs, it's one of the massive costs out there these days. Over 25% of Americans spend over 50% of their income on housing, according to some statistics. And the average for a lot of other Americans is oftentimes around 30 to 40% of their income being spent on housing. And that's actually extremely much. So yeah, maybe a log cabin or log home might be the solution for some people. Anyway, if you have not checked out the Community Cash Cows, I highly advise you to do so. Community Cash Cows, it's basically my course and community about building an online paid community. I'm in the process of interviewing at least 30 experts about their real life success story of how they built and how they are running an online paid community that is profiting at least $10,000 per month. So if you want to learn from those real life success stories, I've not done all 30 interviews yet, but I've done a bunch of them. And if you want to learn from those real life success stories, as well as connect with a bunch of other people that are also in the process of building their own paid community. Check out communitycashcows.com. All right. Take care and God bless.